It is our sincere hope that the movie will spread his spirit of sacrifice to all Vietnamese, especially among those who are fighting to bring freedom and democracy in Vietnam. Like many Vietnamese political refugees overseas, the day after President Nguyen Minh surrendered to the North Vietnamese Communist Army on April 30th, 1975, Professor Nguyen began to recall Vietnam's historical events.
I would like to recount the content of the final meeting at 6 Ba Trieu Street in Saigon's Chinatown. The political situation of the country had deteriorated to the extent that third-party solutions had been formulated under the government. For the first time, we saw Professor Huy cry in front of us. He apologized to his comrades and to his brothers in arms in the nationalist progressive movement and in the Neo-Dai Viet Party for leading them to a dead end. He considered himself the commander of a warship, and, with the ship about to sink, he was ready to stay behind and live and die with his comrades. But we begged him to leave. In the end, he agreed to go. He left, with Colonel Cao Min Chow, who was assigned with the responsibility of bringing him to the building by the Interior Ministry on Kentinat Street.
Professor Nguyen is known as a patriot who dedicated his entire life to his country, from the time he was a young man until he passed away at the age of 65. In the years after 1975, he was considered a prominent figure overseas, not only among the Vietnamese community, but also among well-known dignitaries around the world who respected his principles of non-violence in his struggle against communism and his extraordinary efforts in the international campaign to support the goal of democratization. Professor Huy's life has been inextricably associated with the fate of his nation through its many historical circumstances and events. For over 40 years, he fought tirelessly for the independence of the Vietnamese people and sacrificed his entire life in the service of his country. From writing poetry to performing research studies, from joining political organizations to cooperating with government authorities, from leading political parties to rallying international dignitaries to his cause, he had a tremendously profound impact within Vietnam and abroad. Given his vast knowledge, outstanding memory, extraordinary discipline and focus, and enormous capacity for work, he left a wealth of invaluable literary works and earned the respect of every reader. In his later years, Professor Huy often confided that if he had time, he would write a book every month. He wrote on the bus, on the train, on the airplane, in the back seat of the car, in his bedroom, even on his sickbed. 2 poems in The Vietnamese Soul, his book of poetry, were taught in schools and have become classics. They are The Unsung Heroes and Morning at Yang Bai, which many people have learned by heart, not knowing the poems by Dang Phuong had been written by Mr. Nguyen. After Dai Viet Party leader Truong Thu An went missing in the 1940s, Mr. Huy took over the task of thinking through and rewriting the party's political theory to incorporate principles of liberalism and constitutional democracy in his book, The Doctrine of the Nation's Survival.
That impressive set of books entitled The Doctrine of the Nation's Survival that we see now, he wrote most of it at a time when he only had his French 10th grade diploma and had not yet graduated from high school with a French baccalaureate. He completed it in mid-1954.
His doctoral dissertation, entitled The Notions of Elite in Traditional Chinese Political Thought, was recognized as one of the best for the 1963-1964 academic year at the University of Paris. The fictional kung fu novels by author Jin Young are extremely popular, with millions of readers worldwide. In a book entitled The Hidden Political Thoughts in Jin Young's Martial Arts Fiction Novels, Professor Huy uncovered the hidden political concepts in this epic series, explaining the pros and cons in those concepts, and formulating a manifesto and concrete suggestions on how to build happiness for the people of a nation. The Lay Code, Law in Traditional Vietnam, is the culmination of in-depth and systematic scholarly research covering many aspects of the history and civilization of Vietnam. In the course of his research, he uncovered the true identity of the author of the Lay Code.
There is no book in any language, even in Vietnamese, that can be compared to the 3-volume series of the Lay Code, which provides an in-depth study in English of Han Duc Code of Law.
Perestroika, The Revenge of Marxism over Leninism, represents his last literary work, which he wrote while very ill and finished just 2 months before he died. Published in English, French, and Vietnamese, this book is a major contribution to international political ideology and was dedicated to the members of the International Committee for a Free Vietnam. Professor Huy's cultural, literary, and political legacy is remarkable. The eclectic nature and richness of the topics he addressed in his books, poems, articles in various magazines, and other publications, interviews, and speeches at various research institutions or renowned universities attest to his meticulous and thorough research skills, extraordinary erudition, versatility, and invaluable foresight. The history of the struggle for independence and freedom in Vietnam in the mid-19th century. On the subject of democracy and opposition parties, co-authored with Professor Nguyen Van Bong. Human Rights in Traditional China and Vietnam, co-authored with Mr. Stephen B. Young. The Quarrel of the Six Beasts, Introduction and Explanation. Vietnamese Last Names. Nostradamus and the Spectre of Vietnam, by Vu Vang Chen, translated from French into Vietnamese. The Vietnamese Flag and National Anthem. Vietnam and the Neutrality Solution. Ho Chi Minh, a Human Rights Criminal. A New Strategy to Defend the Free World Against Communism Expansion. Understanding the Relations between China, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. Training Materials for Mid-Level Political Cadres. His greatest dream was that after Vietnam attained true peace and unity, he would retire and devote his time to writing. He wanted to record his experience for future generations. He used to say, "Even if I live another 10 or 20 years, I still would not have enough time to write everything that I want." His intellectual capacity was extraordinary, his patriotism boundless, and his insatiable desire to serve his country permeated through every fiber of his being throughout his entire life.
Nguyễn Ngọc Huy đó thì
He was the son of district leader Hua, whose full name was Nguyen Ngoc Hua. As a result of his contribution to the field of education at the time, he was awarded the honorary title of district leader Hua. Generations of students have studied with him, including my own father.
Mr. Nguyen Ngọc Huy was born in 1924. As a young boy, he attended elementary school in the village of My Lop. Next, he attended junior high school at Tang Nguyen District Junior High. In 1937, he moved to Saigon and attended Petros Key High School. He graduated magna cum laude in 1941, ranking first in Cochin China, the region in Vietnam that encompassed the southern third of Vietnam under the French colonial rule from 1862 to 1954. He taught himself and passed the French High School Baccalaureate I in 1954 and Baccalaureate II in 1955.
Lúc mà ở bên Pháp thì
When we lived in France, my mother was the main breadwinner of the family, so my father could be free to study.
kiếm tiền cho gia đình để cho ba rảnh tay đi học.
Back then, he worked as a waiter in a restaurant. Whenever there were customers, he would take care of them, then he would go back to study during any lull in between.
Rồi ba rảnh chút nào thì ba trở lại ngồi ba học.
In 1955, he moved to Phnom Penh, Cambodia, with Mr. Ngoc Nghia. The same year, he was assigned to go to France to assist Dr. Nguyen Tom Hoang. He registered at both the School of Political Science, at that time renamed the Institute of Political Studies, and the School of Law and Economic Science at the University of Paris. He graduated from the Institute of Political Studies with a degree in International Relations in 1958. He received his law degree in 1959, MA in Political Science in 1960, and PhD in Political Science in 1963. In 1965, he became a professor at the National Institute of Administration in Saigon, teaching political science and constitutional law, concurrently holding positions at different universities, including the University of Dalat, University of Hue, University of Can Tho, Vang Han University, Minh Duc University, and the School of Pedagogy at the University of Saigon. He was also a lecturer at military academies such as the National Defense College, Command and General Staff College, and the College of the Staff for Political and Psychological Warfare. In 1967, he was invited to become Dean of the School of Law and Social Science at the University of Can Tho. In 1974, the private business college of Minh Chi was established, following the model of the French Business School, and applying concepts from American community colleges. Its mission was to train and provide middle and upper-level managers in the fields of economics and business who would help in the reconstruction of the country. The founding members of the college were Professor Nguyen Ngọc Huy, Professor Nguyen Van Ngong, Dr. Phang Vang Song, Dr. Ma Sai, Dr. Do Tan Chi, Dr. Nguyen Wang Chin, Professor Chang Man Swung. In 1975, he came to the U.S. as a refugee and was given a research associate position at Harvard Law School. His first few years were devoted to translating into English and annotating the code of laws used in ancient Vietnam under the Le dynasty, also known as Ham Duc Law. Mr. Nguyen Ngọc Huy married Miss Yum Thi Tu in 1952. At the time, she was a member of the nursing staff at the Tu Du Hospital. From an early age, Nguyen Ngọc Hui's only passion was politics, and he showed no interest in matrimony. But bowing to entreaties from his family and friends, he agreed to get married on the condition that he be allowed to pursue his political activities. They had 3 children, Nguyen Ngọc Quoc Thuy, Nguyen Ngọc Thuy Thăng, and Ngoc Can Thuy.
Ba không có được gần gũi với con.
Father was never close to us children because of his constant political activities, but we deeply respected him and would always listen to him and obey his orders. He felt guilty for not being home with us and would seldom punish us. If we ever received less than perfect grades at school, we would not show a report card to my mother because we knew she would reprimand us. Instead, we would wait for her to be busy in the kitchen after lunch and then rush to our father before his afternoon rest to ask him to sign our report card quickly. He knew exactly what we were up to, would smile and say, "I see your grades are not very good this month. Next time, try harder." Then he would sign. All three children loved him deeply and never wanted to cause him any heartache or tarnish the family name. As a result, we always studied hard. The dutiful and devoted wife never interfered in her husband's activities, focusing instead on managing the household and raising the children to free him for his political activities. In all respects, she quietly fulfilled her duties as his partner, one of the unsung heroes he praised in the Unsung Heroes poem which he had written. My mother took care of everything in the house, finances, children, cooking, and all household chores, so my father could be free to conduct his many political activities. As a youngster, he was often ill, and he remained in poor health throughout his adult life, so my mother had to take care of him as well. In addition, because of his high political profile, his life was constantly threatened, and my mother always worried about his safety. On April 16, 1974, Mrs. Yum Thi Thu died in a tragic seaside accident at the Vung Tau beach. Mr. Wee carried his deep sorrow in his heart through the remaining 16 years of his life, with the constant memory of the love, loyalty, and sacrifice which his life partner had given him over their 22 years together. He never yearned for any other woman.
Lúc mà má mất á.
When she died, my father was devastated. He had lost his right arm and confidant. After she passed away, he prayed for her every night. No matter how sick he was or how far away he was from home, he always did it faithfully.
When Mr. Nguyen Ngoc Hui's wife passed away, I don't recall ever seeing a funeral where so many students from all over the city attended in such large numbers.
8 years later, also on April 16th, a second tragedy struck him with the death of his youngest son, 17-year-old Ngoc Can Thuy. This was a child whom he loved particularly dearly, as the boy who had lost his mother at a young age was separated from his father, who was often absent for his political activities, and from his older sister, who was away in school. In a moment of deep depression, Can Thuy committed suicide.
Đối với đứa em ấy thì
Regarding my younger brother Andy's death, my father felt enormously guilty. He believed that because of his political struggle, he neglected his children and family obligations and suffered a lot as a result.